kick is blocked. Appalachian State has stunned the college football world. One of the greatest upsets in sports history.
17 seconds, high formation now. Here's the snap. Winston rolling right, throws the pass on the end. It's caught! It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown official! Kelvin Benjamin. Knowles retake the lead with 13 seconds remaining.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
And welcome to another episode of The Ladder We're Live. I am Mike Saddle, and over there it's Dustin. And that's the second week in a row I've made my name sound like Saddle. Saddle up, because here we go for another week of college football. Dustin, how are you, buddy?
Man, I'm up here in basically Canada, up here in Maine. Yeah. It's a little chilly up here. It's 50 degrees, but
ooh, nice nice, buddy.
Doing good. To you, I'd rather it be
Florida,
85.
Florida.
I'd rather it be 95 up here, but I'm excited for another week of some big action.
Yeah, man. Last week was one of those kind of sleepy weeks where stuff was close to happening but didn't happen. Obviously, 2 weeks ago kind of shook the core of the season. This is a sneaky good slate, though. I mean, there are some games on here that are there's some games in here that may get some coaches fired. We'll talk about that. There's some games on here that I think will kind of show that some teams may not be as advertised, whether that be good or bad. And then, we're still answering questions. This week 4, Dustin, is kind of the week I normally get a good grip on who is, good, who's bad, who these teams are, is normally around week 4 when I start to kind of get a grasp on what's going on in the landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, things are going to start. Now, obviously, nothing is decided in week.
Sorry, technical glitch there. Go ahead. I don't know how that happened.
Commercial break. Nothing's decided in week 4, but you said it. The season starts to take shape, and we get to really see some teams' identities. And honestly, we start putting some, 4 games in. Some teams are over halfway to bowl eligibility, so even the postseason starts to take shape now. So it's you can learn a lot in week 4.
I kind of hate it because some of the results last week ruined this week. But college football, it doesn't really work that way because every given Saturday, really, because I hate to kind of steal the professional football quote of any given Sunday, but it's every given Saturday, man. I mean, there's a team that we're going to start off with here in a second that has not played a soul. They've played 3 scrimmages. Nobody with a pulse. 0. They finally are going to come up with someone that has a pulse, and that's why this game is very interesting. We have a Duke-Kansas undefeated football matchup. It's not March. It's not March. It's not the season tip-off on ESPN that they do with the college football playoff show. That's not what this is. It's not Maui. We are talking about Duke, Kansas in football. Super excited about that game. If I'd have asked you 4 years ago, Dustin, are you going to watch the big Duke-Kansas football game? What would you have said?
I'd have been like, oh, yeah, man, I love Coach K and Bill Self. Like, that's 2 great, Matt.
No, Dustin. The football game.
I'd be like, is that the only game on in that time slot? Because that's the only way I'm flipping over there.
Oh, buddy. Hey, Cutcliffe, 4 years ago, they would have wiped the field with Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
So these are 2 new eras for both programs. Excited to talk about it. And there's one game in particular we're about to get into. We're about to get into quick hitters that I think making a coach, his seat's going to get really, really warm. And by the way, let's pub really quick. Next week, we're going to have a bonus show for everybody on our podcast feed. We're going to kind of go around the coaching carousel. I kind of wanted to wait until we're 4 weeks in. We've already had some coaches fired. Obviously, Scott Frost was a big one, but Herm Edwards fired on Sunday, a mere 12 hours after his loss against Eastern Michigan, which you laughed me out of the room during the previous season. Do not forget when I said that could be a possible loss. Ended up being a loss. Just throwing that out there because Chris Creighton is a good football coach with a good football.
It's easier to win games when there's information being handed out left and right. That's sabotage.
That's dirty. and that's the rumor. We don't have any proven facts. We got no text messages or anything yet. But, buddy, you can say what you want. How miserable do you have to be to work with for your coaching staff to give away information to the other team? Now that to me says something about both parties, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not the way I would have handled it. Yeah, it's not the way I would have handled it. Okay, Dustin, we're going to save all the coaching talk for a bonus show this week. We're going to save the Thursday and Friday night games for the review pod this week, just so we can get into the slate. We don't want to hold everyone for over an hour like we did last week. We try to get it out of here about 45 minutes or so. Just good little, preview. 9 times out of 10, you're watching this before you turn on College Game Day. Sometimes you watch it during. I don't know. Listen to it after the show, when you're jogging, when you're working out, whatever. Just this show goes up immediately on the pod feed right after we're done broadcasting it live. So you could if you miss anything, you can go check it out on the pod feed as well. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We appreciate you guys watching and listening along. Okay, Dustin, let's get into the Week 4 slate, baby. Here's the news. 12 o'clock, Maryland versus Michigan. This is on Fox. Michigan is a 16.5-point favorite. It's a lot of points, but I understand Vegas's mindset because they've literally named their score the first 3 weeks. And I'm talking about Michigan. Maryland coming off a tough game. Again, they had a serious threat to lose last week against SMU, had it not been for some really strange play calling by Rhett Lashley, which we know a little bit about as Florida State fans last week. So this is an interesting game because to me, this is Michigan's first team that has a pulse. Like, I have a really good feeling about the Maryland offense. I'm just wondering if the Michigan defense is not going to let it pop off. I think that may be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I like this Maryland offense a lot. I like what Coach Loxley's got going on there. My Talia Tagovailoa agenda is thriving. He's playing well.
Yes, he is.
But Michigan, I get it. They haven't, Michigan hasn't really played anyone. You mentioned it.
No.
This is their first opponent with a pulse, as you like to put it. But still, this Michigan team is on a different level right now. I mean, to play nobodies and win convincingly is one thing, but to win in the fashion that they've been winning, they just look complete. So I like Michigan to win and actually cover that 16.5. Talia is going to be fine. He's gonna be okay. But Michigan's run game is going to be the difference in this one.
Yeah, I just don't trust the Maryland defense in this game, in this situation. I love that Michigan offensive line. They are solid as a rock. This offense may be better than the one they had last year, and that's partly because of McCarthy at quarterback, who now, here's the thing that Michigan didn't have last year, and that's the ability to pull the ball and run around with the quarterback. So any kind of run-pass option is a threat now. You have to respect McCarthy's running ability. They didn't have that last year. They have that now. They have the offensive line. I like Michigan to win and cover as well. To me, that's not necessarily an indictment on Maryland as much as it is how high I am on this Michigan team. Now, we're going to find out a little bit about them because, quite frankly, they played 3 of the bottom 5 teams in the country. I mean, Hawaii is probably the worst team in the country as far as FBS goes. Statistically, although they did get a win against Duquesne last week, or the week before it may have been, sorry. But UConn is terrible, and Colorado State, pulling for you, Jay Norvell, but it's going to be a tough year 1, transition year. So we're going to learn a little bit more about this Michigan Wolverines team. I think they win and maybe cover pretty easily. I'm interested to see. I spoke about some games that may get coaches fired. Let's move on. Missouri, Auburn, ESPN. Auburn is a 7-point favorite. That's got to be because of the shellacking that Missouri took at the hands of Kansas State, who then turned around and lost to Tulane last week. But Auburn took a complete beating at the hands of Penn State, especially on the ground. The problem is I don't think Missouri has the offensive firepower to do what Penn State did last week. And Auburn still has some guys, especially on defense, got SEC caliber blue chip prospects on that team. If they have any backbone at all as a program and as a team, they will go out and win this game the way they should. I think Auburn wins. Could be interesting for a while, though.
Yeah, I mean, Auburn does have issues, but this does feel like a must-win, can't-lose game for Brian Harsin. I look at it when I saw that 7-point number. I figure that talent-wise, Auburn is a 3.5-point favorite. Jordan Hare adds another 3.5 point. That's in my mind how I came up with 7 points, because you're right. Based on what we saw last week against Penn State, But I do like Auburn to win this game. Tank Bixby and Jarquez Hunter, they're going to carry them. I got Auburn by 10 points because I do think they show some backbone, some heart, and some grit to pull this one out for Harsin.
Let's move on. Baylor, Iowa State, ESPN2. Iowa State, 2.5-point favorite, which was kind of shocking to me when I looked it up. But I guess when you look into the numbers, maybe it's not. This Baylor offense is kind of sputtering a little more than I thought it would. It's not that it's bad, but I really thought with quarterback change that this Bears offense would be rolling. It hasn't quite got off the ground the way I thought it would. But you know what look, here's the thing, man. This is a game that I know what Vegas says, but there's probably a game that the public is thinking Baylor wins easily. These are the times I like taking Matt Campbell team. This is the season I like betting with Matt Campbell than I do betting against him. See, last year when you have all those expectations, you lose 4 or 5 games. These are the teams you bet on Matt Campbell teams with. So I'm going to go Iowa State to win. I haven't seen anything special out of this Baylor team. Now, they took BYU down to the wire, but that was a pretty banged-up BYU team, and then we saw what happened to that same BYU team last week against Oregon. I think it could be a tough by the way, I'm going to go the under here, by the way. I'm taking the under as the play, but Cyclones to win the football game, man.
Yeah, so, Xavier Hutchinson, here's the thing. Iowa State 2.5-point favorites here. Xavier Hutchinson is a beast for Iowa State. He's a great receiver, but I think the Baylor defense is going to step up, keep him in check, keep the rest of the Cyclones offense in line. I like Baylor to win and cover in a low-scoring affair, like you said. I like the under in this one, but I like Baylor by maybe a field goal, maybe 5 points, somewhere in there.
Okay. All right. Oh, man, here we go. Sorry, I skipped this one because I was excited to talk about it. All right, Dustin, big game of the day, baby. Duke, Kansas, FS1. That's a shame it's only on FS1. Shame. Duke, Kansas, FS1. Kansas is a 8.5-point favorite, by the way, this game. All these games are at noon that we're doing right now, so in case you guys are wondering the time slot. All right, man. I don't know where to go here, but I just love that Lance Leipold offense. I think they can score with everybody. And as much as I respect what Mike Elko has done thus far in year one at Duke, I think that defense is going to play nasty. So I think it'll be interesting for a while. That Kansas crowd, though, they sold that place out. So I don't want to hear anything about them not caring about football. Fan bases want to see wins, man. We want to see wins.
Yeah.
You put some wins on the field. You put an entertaining product on the field, people will come watch. And they sold that place out. Cool game that these two basketball powers are playing on the football field. I think that's a really cool thing that we're doing. I like Duke. I respect Duke. I think Duke looking like maybe – I think we had them at what, 2.5? And they may roll their way into 5-6 wins. They're going to beat some teams they probably shouldn't because of how well coached they are. I like the Jayhawks, and I think the Jayhawks could win pretty big.
Yeah, so I love what Mike Elko is doing in Durham, so I don't want to undersell that. But this Kansas offense is lethal. I mean, they average over 7 yards per carry on the ground. They're second in the nation on third down conversions, so they keep drives going. They extend drives. I like the Jayhawks to start 4-0. So I do like Kansas to win and probably cover. I'll say probably by around 10 or so. But here, I like the over in this one, which is, when you think about it, it's a lofty over, 66.5 points. Don't care. This is two high-powered offenses. Let's buckle up and enjoy this one.
My only fight back against that is I think this Kansas defense is sneaky tough in certain situationally, not overall. They give up big plays, but situationally, if you watch them against Houston last week, they were good like on a down-to-down basis, but they gave up a lot of big plays, especially early in the game. But once they kind of buckled in and took control, Houston had a hard time moving the ball in certain situations. So now that side of the ball is going to hurt them when they get into Big 12 play, I believe, especially against teams like Oklahoma and Texas. But, hey, I think it's okay to say Kansas may be good, not a good story, a good football team. That's interesting to watch out for in the Big 12 race. All right, this next game is kind of a show me game. Not for USF. This is USF Louisville. It's on ESPN3, which probably means it's your like JP game of the week. The Jefferson Pilot days or the ACC's version of it. The more TV 32 route that we're talking about here. Louisville's a 13-point favorite, but we watched both of these teams last week, Dustin. Mm-hmm. If the same if they were able to not be heartbroken by losing to Florida, and they are able to kind of gain something from that instead, and they go up to Louisville, a defeated Louisville team that has a lot of injuries. They're down after losing to Florida State last week. It could be very interesting. I'm going to take Louisville because I respect Malik Cunningham's ability to overcome anything else that's going on. But, buddy, the USF team that showed fight against Florida last week, if they show up, Louisville's likely to lose this game. And then we're talking something a little different with Scott Satterfield.
I agree completely. USF, they gave Florida all they could handle. It took a botched snap or a botched hold, rather, on a last-second field goal to keep that game out of overtime.
If that doesn't happen, that field goal that was really a bad hold still goes in. It still goes in from flat on the ground. That's crazy, man.
Yeah. And then on the other side of it, Louisville's turf tried to take out most of FSU's team. So that's where this game's being played.
And their own team. Jesus.
And their own team. That turf's terrible. Should be an interesting matchup, though. I do like Louisville to win the game, but I'll take USF to cover. Is it because if they come out playing inspired ball like they did last week, watch out.
Yeah, I like USF to cover as well. Would not shock me one bit if we turn on the fourth quarter and Scott Satterfield may be in a little bit of a questionable situation. Buffalo, Eastern Michigan, CBS Sports Network. I know you put this on here because of my love for Chris Creighton, which I appreciate you, by the way. Eastern Michigan is a 6-point favorite. I like Eastern Michigan big. That Buffalo is it just shows you how quickly you can fall off in the G5, man. I mean, that is last week was a toughie for them. I like the Eagles. Give me Chris Creighton and the boys.
Yeah, Buffalo just can't get anything really going this season. The passing game is good for Buffalo, but the difference in this game is going to be Samson Evans. I mean, that guy last week against Arizona State, I don't know if you checked the box score. He ran the ball 36 times for 258 yards against Arizona State. He's going to be the difference in this one. He's going to torch Buffalo's defense. Give me Eastern Michigan by 2 scores.
3:30 slate. Here we go. Minnesota, Michigan State, Big Ten Network. Minnesota, 2.5-point favorite. I don't think that's enough points. This Michigan State passing defense is awful. One of the worst in the country. We saw what they gave up to Washington last week. And I think this Minnesota offense is just as good, if not better, than what Washington has. I like the Gophers pretty big and comfortable. I don't think Michigan State's bad, but that kind of spark they had last year seems to have worn off a little bit. They're going to have to go out and recruit some guys now. You can't just have all that turnover and use the portal. You're going to have to go have a nice little mixed bag. And I like this Minnesota team, man. I don't know if it's special. I don't know yet, but I think they'll win this game pretty comfortably.
I like this Minnesota team too, and PJ Fleck is one of my top 3 favorite coaches in all of college football. That being said, last year's coaching sweetheart was Mel Tucker. This team, he got the big contract. This team was looked like world beaters at the time last season. They kind of got embarrassed last week. Yeah. I think they're going to come out pissed off. Mel's going to have his boys ready to step it up. That defense is bad, especially the passing defense, and Minnesota's passing offense is good. However, I like Mel Tucker to, and the thing about Minnesota is every year they get close, but they have a stumble. So I look for this to be that stumble. I actually like Sparty to get the upset here and win by 10.
Okay. Wow. Okay. The only reason I say nay is that Michigan State offense. I don't trust Clayton Thorne. Not one bit.
That's fair.
Yeah. Indiana, Cincinnati, ESPN2. Cincinnati, a 16.5-point favorite. This line was interesting to me. I know that Cincinnati's coming off a playoff appearance, but this Indiana team isn't terrible. They had to come back last week and barely scrape out one against Western Kentucky, who was beating them like a drum. Then all of a sudden, Indiana comes back. I turned that game off thinking, all right, we're good here. We weren't good here. They came back and won. And I was like, what the hell, man? So This line's a little big to me. I'm going to take Cincinnati, who struggled with Miami of Ohio early last week. Still don't like that quarterback situation. I'm going to take Cincinnati to win, but I don't think they cover this spread.
Yeah, so Indiana, they've been playing with fire in their 3-0 start. You said it, just close instance after close instance. That's not sustainable. You can't have sustainable success playing that close to fire. Ben Bryant on the other side is completing 70% of his passes. I think he's going to be the difference. So I like Cincinnati to get the win and in Indiana's undefeated season, but I do like Indiana to cover. That's 16.5. That's a lot of points.
Yeah, that's a big number. I don't think the Cincinnati offense is explosive enough to do that, but I could be wrong. We'll see. James Madison, App State, ESPN Plus. App is an 8-point favorite. Love this game. Sneaky good game of the day. And by the way, just watch App State this season. It's just one of those years wherever you can get App State, you gather around the TV and you watch them because they're so Jekyll and Hyde and fun to watch and interesting. I think they got a tough game on their hands this week. I know that James Madison lost a ton off of that team last year to transfers, but they seem to be well coached. They seem to be just fine. Interesting game coming off of two big emotional wins. How long can App State stay up for every single game? I like App State to win, but close.
Yeah, App State, they got all they wanted last week from Troy.
Who I think has a good defense. I think Troy's got a good defense.
Yeah, it took a crazy Hail Mary there. I think they bounce back and win pretty comfortably here. I like them by 10. Chase Bryce, he's going to be too much for that Duke's defense. So I look for App State. They've kind of been America's sweetheart this season, even though they lost to North Carolina. They just seem like that. Right. So I think they get back on track though this week against a good Duke's team. Yeah,
and I think again, this is James Madison's first year in the FBS. They moved up. They're in the Sun Belt. So conference game here. Fun little watch. Toledo, San Diego State. I love this game because you get the MAC and the Mountain West, whose cultures couldn't be any more different. This game is on FS1. Toledo's a 1.5-point favorite. Man, bump that. Give me the Rockets big.
Yeah, this one, the line actually jumped up to 3, I think it is now. Toledo -3 still. This is the first ever meeting between these two teams. That's fun. I always love that when you get first-time meetings. San Diego State, however, is 14-1-1 all-time versus the MAC. But DeQuan Finn is electric at quarterback for Toledo.
Yes.
I look for him to be the deciding factor. Give me the Rockets to win. Honestly, I don't know if it'll be big. I don't like this one enough to call a spread, honestly, because it's such a difference in styles. San Diego State, and they pride themselves on defense. The MAC prides themselves on high-powered offenses. DeQuan Finn certainly is that. So I really don't know what to expect in this one. But if I had to go out there, I'll say Toledo gets a win by a touchdown.
Don't go off of what you saw from Toledo last week, who played, Ohio State, one of the best teams in the country. They can't hang with Ohio State, but buddy, this offense is so much fun to watch. I highly recommend if you get the chance to just flip over to FS1 and watch this game. Really cool styles clash. It's in San Diego State's new nightmare of a stadium, apparently. Like they built it like right in the middle of the sun, like there's no shade. The bathrooms are terrible. It doesn't seem to be going well. And they have some off the field stuff with their former punter. And this does not seem like one of those seasons for the Aztecs. So I like the Rockets pretty comfortably, and just because of that offense. I think this could be a season where Jason Candle, if you're looking to move on, there could be some either like better G5 openings coming up, or hell, man, if Matt Campbell leaves, you just hire his successor. Boom, Iowa State. You got it. The culture's already there. Let's roll. I actually like that hire for Iowa State if they were to make it. All right, 4 o'clock, Oregon, Washington State. This is on Fox. Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite. Fun game here, man. Sneaky good football game. I love this matchup. I just don't think this Washington State offense can score enough points. We saw them against Wisconsin, and I know that Wisconsin defense is good, and they kind of played Wisconsin's style football game. But this Oregon offense got off the schneid last week, man. They were rocking and rolling. Only concern, this game's on the road in Pullman, but it's not at night. It's not at night. So, Bo Nix on the road is an interesting mixed bag there. I still like the Ducks to win. I think the Ducks end up covering Oregon maybe by 9, 10, something like that.
Yeah, Oregon 6.5 doesn't seem quite big enough to me. Just based on what we saw last week, they looked dominant against a good BYU team. So if that team shows up again, this one could get ugly. And unlucky for Wazoo, I think it does. Bo Nix appears to be on one of his upswings right now. I think that continues this week. Give me the Ducks by multiple scores.
Okay, 5:30 on the Pac-12 network. I love how you put this game on here for me. Thank you so much. Arizona, Cal. Cal is a 3-point favorite. Bump that. I know they play Notre Dame tough. That's a bad Notre Dame team. I don't care what anybody says. I like the Cal defense. So one thing you can guarantee about Justin Wilcox's coach team is that they're going to play good defense. I mean, now they gave up some points late to Notre Dame, but they didn't. I mean, it was some situational weirdness. It wasn't just Notre Dame drive after drive after drive. They held them in check for the most part. I just like this Arizona State offense more, man, with Jaden Delora. Give me the Wildcats. Bear down, baby. I like Arizona to win outright. Let's go.
I like Arizona too.
There you go. Made you a believer. Let's get out of here, baby. Come on.
I know they didn't look like world beaters against North Dakota State, but in all likelihood, that's the FCS champion.
That's a dynasty. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. So you can't really judge them too much off that.
Better men have fallen to the Bison. So
yeah, exactly. Cal looked pretty good against Notre Dame, but Notre Dame isn't good. So when you're talking about they held them in check, I think Notre Dame's offense held themselves in check because they're not good. So yeah, give me the Wildcats outright also.
Finally made you a believer. Bear down. You don't have the Sun Devils to root for anymore, which, by the way, Herm can't. We should have known at the press conference when he didn't know the mascot of the school. That's all I'm saying. All right. 7 o'clock. Oh, you sicko. This is a sicko game right here, buddy. That's gross. Over under on the punts. We should, if you can find a punt total, bet it. Bet the over. Here we go. Iowa, Rutgers, FS1. Iowa, 7.5-point favorite. What games has Vegas been watching? Iowa's barely even been able to score 7 points, much less beat somebody by Nevada notwithstanding, who's one of the worst teams in the country. Okay. I mean, who got beat by Incarnate Word the week before. So we're not using Nevada as an example. They're the outlier. The norm says Iowa has a really hard time scoring over 7 points, seeing as they scored 7 against South Dakota State, and it wasn't a touchdown, and they scored 7 against Iowa State. That's it. That's all they scored against Iowa State. So they come into this game, and Rutgers is undefeated, haven't really played anyone. Their Boston College win looks less impressive as the season goes on. I had a tough – man, give me Greg Schiano and Rutgers. I know Iowa is a 7.5-point favorite. I like the Scarlet Knights to win outright, baby. Now, my only concern with picking this is Iowa's defense is fantastic. They are nasty, mean, probably the best in the Big Ten. And that is why Iowa is so frustrating to watch because they're elite on – I've never seen anything like it. Elite on one side of the ball and pathetic on the other side. It makes zero sense. I'm picking Rutgers because I just can't pick Iowa. I hate watching them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, this Iowa team, they just flat out can't score. Listen to this. They've scored 41 points all season, right? The Iowa baseball team had a game on Thursday. They scored 32 runs in that one game. So that's kind of funny. All the offense is over on the baseball diamond instead of the football field. So will the team finally show some pride this weekend and get into the end zone? I say probably not. You said Iowa has a great defense, and they do, but Rutgers has a good defense too.
Yes, they do.
So
yes, they do.
This is going to be you mentioned sicko and how nasty this game is. Yeah, bet the under. Take the under here. I also like take the punt over. I like Greg Schiano's team outright also.
I'm going to tell you something. If I almost wish in this season Iowa would have beaten Iowa State. Because then you'd have to talk about an undefeated Iowa, and they just keep sneaking these games out 7-5, 4-3. Which, by the way, I'm still waiting on the 4-3 football game. I have to see it in my lifetime. Got to see it. But unfortunately, they lost to the Cyclones. So nay on the Hawkeyes. But hey, what's crazy is with that defense, they can win. They're going to be in every game they play because of that defense. I mean, it's just that good. Every game they play on their schedule, they can be in the fourth quarter because their defense is just absolutely stacked. This game had 8 o'clock slate here now. This game lost a lot of luster last week. Thanks a lot, Wildcats. However, I still think it's sneaky interesting for a couple different reasons. So you got Kansas State, Oklahoma. This is a Fox night game at 8 o'clock. Oklahoma is a 13-point favorite, rightfully so, after last week's big letdown against Tulane. Look, Oklahoma looks good, man. Better than we thought they would look. However, they haven't quite played anyone with a pulse. Yes, I'm talking about you, Nebraska. You do not have a pulse. You showed it last week. There's no pulse there. So Kansas State is going to get up for this game. I know they're coming off a loss against Tulane, but we've seen crazier things. I'm curious to see what happens when the Oklahoma run defense is tested by this really good Kansas State offensive line. Although Tulane was able to handle them in check, I think it's close for a little while, but I think Oklahoma pulls away. I think Dylan Gabriel and those guys on offense are just too explosive. And they're basically, Dustin, I don't know if you realize this, they're basically running what your guys run in Knoxville as far as the offensive system goes. It's almost the same damn system that Jeff Lebby is running there. And Dylan Gabriel runs it really, really well as a quarterback. So give me the Sooners pretty big.
Yeah, 13-point favorites. Look, Kansas State just lost to Tulane, point blank.
I think that's not a bad Tulane football team. I think we're going to find that out.
It's not. You scoffed when I put it on the rundown. I was like, hey, they're undefeated.
You were right.
They still are.
You were right.
But, I can't in good conscience here pick them to win this game. OU, they look like a legit contender, honestly. I mean, they have they've exceeded our expectations. I don't think that either one of us necessarily had a loss on their schedule at this point, but they've looked good in their wins. So I think they're going to roll here. I like the Sooners to win and cover pretty easily.
Okay, Boston College at Florida State. This is on the ACC network. Florida State, a 16.5-point favorite. I'm not sure about the injury status of Jordan Travis. Rumor has it if he's healthy enough, he's going to start just because of the reps. And I think you want to keep momentum going while you can. They've sold this game out, quote unquote. So I do think there will at least be 70,000 people there for a bad Boston College night game. We have a chance to go 4-0. Man, just signed 2 big recruits in the same week. Got a lot of momentum. You don't want to lose it. If Jordan Travis is healthy, I do think he plays. If he's not, if he's teetering on the borderline of another week would really get him right, which, by the way, they may get that game moved because of a hurricane that coming in next week, potentially. This line is big, though, man. Look, this is a bad Boston College offense. I mean, Phil Dracovic is an NFL quarterback. I have no doubt about that. I don't think anyway. That offensive line is starting walk-ons, freshman walk-ons. It's going to be unfair in the trenches. The Boston College defense is fine, though. I don't think they're a bad unit or anything. So I do think the way that Florida State is going to play this game, if Tate plays, is kind of the same way they played it in the second half last week. Run the ball with Trayshawn Ward and give him really easy passes, maybe some limited RPO stuff. I think Florida State wins. Covering is interesting. I could see Florida State winning by 17 points, though, so I'll take Florida State in the points.
Yeah, FSU should not struggle in this one. Point blank, period. I don't care who's under center. If Jordan Travis is healthy, I still would rest him. I get it. You don't want to lose momentum. You want to get him the reps, but you also don't want to risk your season.
You also can't afford to go out there and lay a stinker either. Can't do it.
That's true too. That's true too. But based on what we saw last week in the second half from Roadmaker, I mean, I say you go with Roadmaker. This BC team is not good.
No.
The defense is pretty good. They're okay, but that offense is anemic.
Yeah.
On defense for BC, I think that Jaden Woodby, former freshman All-American at Florida State, I think he's going to have a fine evening in his last ever game in Doak Campbell Stadium. Shout out to Jaden Woodby.
Thank God.
Sorry for what's going to happen to your team, though. I think Florida State wins and wins big. I say 3 scores, 21 points, something like that.
I just can't see this Florida State team who is very resilient. They play for each other, with each other, all the cliches that you know. in front of that crowd at night, losing this game, that would be a big setback to me. I just don't see it. Like, I think everything's coming up garnet and gold lately, and I think that trend continues because nothing's come up garnet and gold the last 6 years.
Yeah, you said, I mean, go take care of business, get your first 4-0 start, and God knows how long was it, 2015 still?
Yeah.
2014, something like that. So go get your first 4-0 start since then, and let's ride.
2015, because they won all the way to the Georgia Tech game, which I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, let's keep moving.
All right, let's get a little bit more in-depth here, although we're kind of in-depth on some of those games. That's my fault, not Dustin's. So let's go back to noon, 12 o'clock, Clemson, Wake Forest, ABC. Clemson only a 7-point favorite. I think that's because of the Clemson offense, the way it's kind of sputtered out with DJU. And the offensive line is questionable. However, I watched a lot of Wake and Liberty last week. That team should have lost to Liberty. They needed some late comeback heroics. Liberty went for 2 and didn't get it, which, again, I still love that call because if you're Hugh Freeze, you're down your starting quarterback, you get a chance to beat Wake, you take that chance. This offense isn't clicking like we thought it would in the preseason. I know that Sam Hartman's just coming back and he missed some time. He really only missed one game, though, Dustin. Like, there is no chemistry issue that should happen to me. They're running the same system they've been running. They're not clicking on all cylinders. And here's the problem, the real problem for Wake. That defense is horrendous. They haven't fixed a damn thing on that side of the ball. They can be run on. They can be thrown on. I don't think they have any positives there. The Clemson defense, I just think, is too good. Like, this is a game that I just think comes down to Clemson just has better ball players. Yeah. Now, we saw when Clemson and Wake played last year, Dustin, everyone was kind of high on Wake. Clemson ran it down their throat and beat their ass. I like a very similar outcome. Sleepy nooner at Wake in Winston-Salem. I like the Tigers to win by more than the spread here at 7.
Yeah, 7 was kind of low for me. Here's the thing in this game. One team can score. The other's offense doesn't really instill confidence. It doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, though. Sam Hartman, he's back, and he's shown flashes at times, but you mentioned it. He looks like he's still trying to find his rhythm. You said it. He only missed one game, but he did miss weeks of practice, so I guess I can forgive it a little. But I do love A.T. Perry at receiver for the Deacons. He is a stud. But I think that Clemson team is still just a class above. As shaky as their offenses look, they've actually scored the second most points of any Clemson team since 2014 through the team's first 3 games, 124 points. And the only team that scored more since 2014 was the 2020 team. Clemson's average recruiting class, you mentioned how they just have better ball players. How about this? Clemson's average recruiting class since 2018 is 8th nationally. Wake's is 67th. That's a huge difference in talent right there. I just don't think they have the horses to pull off the upset. You add in the fact that Brian Bresci, he's going to be back. He's going to be playing inspired football following the tragic loss of his sister last week.
Awful.
So I think that, our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. I think that defense is going to smother Wake, as hard to believe as that may be, because that Wake offense is good. But I like the Tigers by 2+ scores.
I'm going to tell you this. If the Clemson offense has trouble moving the ball in this game, then we have some really big issues. Like, I still think they have issues. I think offensive line for them is not good. Like, it's just playing out an average ACC offensive line. So they're going to have to rely on their defense, rely on DJU to make the right decisions and plays as the schedule goes forward. I just think this is a matchup thing. Like, I don't like Wake matching up against Clemson in this situation and setting. So give me Clemson big as well. All right, one of my favorite games of the year every single year, because why? We're Southwest Conference fans on this show, baby. So you know how that goes. TCU, SMU. This is on ESPNU. TCU is a 1.5-point favorite. This is again the SMU won outright last year. By the way, Battle for the Iron Skillet. Really cool trophy. This is a game that SMU won outright last year. But guess what, Dustin? The coach of that SMU team, he's now the coach of the TCU team on the other side of the field. Gonna be some boo birds from SMU people for sure after moving over to the arch rival. Rhett Lashley and company coming up short in a almost upset bid against Maryland last week. So, look, it's really hard as much as I like SMU, we are SMU stans. We love that they were paying players before it was cool. Like, we're all in on the SMU culture, okay? Like, we're big fans. Like, and they use gold Trans Ams in their recruiting packages now, which I think is still the best thing ever. Chef's kiss. Screw the NCAA and their stupid rules. But I just trust the personnel more for TCU in this game. Sometimes it comes down to when you look at you can look at the numbers, you can look at this, and you can look at that. I just think TCU's offense is going to score a lot of points. I think SMU's offense will score some good points too, but I just trust the personnel on the Big 12. It sounds really Power 5 nihilistic here, but I just trust the Power 5 team more in this setting. Now, last year, that Gary Patterson coach team, didn't trust them. That's why Sonny Dykes and company got it done, but I trust Sonny Dykes to beat his old team. I like TCU to win, but not by a lot. Like, I'm thinking 3-6, something like that. I think SMU keeps it close, but TCU gets the iron skillet back in Fort Worth.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun game to watch. Here's the thing. I think that the iron skillet, they should add a throne in the middle with Sonny Dykes in it. This is the Sonny Dykes Bowl. So, and they didn't exactly have the greatest divorce, him and SMU. And you mentioned it.
Well, let's be honest. He took the TCU job about week 4 last year. I mean, He didn't take it, but he took it. Yeah. And everybody knows it.
And then, you add in the fact that these two schools are only separated by about 30 miles. So that's rough sledding right there. Max Duggan, I think he's going to have to manage turnovers and let the run game take over. On defense, TCU should have their fair share of opportunities to get the ball back. SMU turns the ball over a lot, man. They've got 8 turnovers so far this season. I do love what Rhett Lashley has going on at SMU, and I think there's a lot of potential in the future of that program. But I like Sonny Dykes and the team to get this one done. Should be fun. I like the Horned Frogs to win by about 7.
But I will say, wouldn't shock me if SMU pulls it out. Like, it really – that result would not surprise me or mean anything. It wouldn't mean anything bad against TCU because, Sonny Dykes did recruit the guys on the other side of the field for the most part. He put together that SMU roster for the most part. So I think it's a pretty good, talented roster as we saw last year. All right, 3:30. This is the first CBS SEC game of the week, getting down to some of the last SEC on CBS games the next 2 seasons. One of the oldest rivalries in the SEC, Florida, Tennessee. Tennessee's an 11-point favorite, high-powered offense, Hendon Hooker. I may let you go first, but I just want to say the line scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I want to reiterate how frustrated I am that I'm 16 hours away from Knoxville when college game day is there as we speak. But that's okay. It's okay. I'll let it go. Tennessee hasn't beaten Florida since 2016. Hendon Hooker and crew will change that today. Anthony Richardson's his struggles have been well documented, but that Tennessee defense is going to afford him plenty of chances to get his first passing touchdown. I think he will. I called it last week, said he'd get 3. I was wrong.
We're all wrong.
But he's got to throw one eventually. So I'm just going to keep saying it until it happens. He'll get his first one this week against Tennessee. Tennessee's going to have to limit the penalties. And the biggest thing for them is don't let the hype get to their head. Florida is always one of those teams that, for whatever reason, seems like a mental block for Tennessee's teams. Even when they're expected to win, they have a more talented roster. It's in their heads. They blow it. So they're going to have to stay out of their own way this week. This is still a good Florida team, regardless of what we've seen the past 2 weeks. I still think there's a lot of talent on the roster. But I do like the Vols to win this game. I'll take Florida to cover. I think it's a lot of points, 11.5 points. Etienne and Johnson, they're going to create enough opportunities or enough offense on the ground to open up things more for Anthony Richardson. The Tennessee run defense is better than the pass defense, but we saw Pitt have success against them. So I think it's going to be a good game to watch. I'll take Tennessee 31, Gators 24.
I think it's a fun game. And I know what we saw from Florida last week, but styles make fights, as we know. If Florida is able to stick to running the football on the ground successfully, like they have the last 2 weeks, honestly, even against Kentucky, it's like I understand they're trying to get Anthony Richardson involved and, let him throw. Man, dude, I don't think they have to in this game. I think they can run the ball with success against this Tennessee run defense, enough to keep themselves in this game until the end. I really believe that. By the way, success on the ground means you hit play action. Anthony Richardson's capable of making really easy throws. Like, there's a success plan here for Florida to win this game. However, I think Tennessee's offense is just too much. Yeah. We've talked about the Florida defense. I don't think the pass defense is necessarily the issue. I mean, I don't think the secondary as a whole is great, but they've got some really good talent, in their secondary, one of the best corners statistically in the country. It's the run defense of Florida that scares me. Outside of that first line with Dexter and those guys, they just don't have any depth, man. I mean, they get moved off the ball by everybody. USF, Kentucky, and Utah all moved them off the ball and were able to get yards on the ground. So you can run the ball on Florida. And here's the thing. If you allow Tennessee to run, they're going to throw on you like they're going to hit deep shots over the top, and they're going to score. So I think this Tennessee offense has the capability to put up around 31, 34 points, something like that. I'd like Tennessee to win. I know the 11 is a tough number because I almost want to put it 31-20. Like that score sounds really good to me. So maybe Vegas knows something after all. I'll take Tennessee 31-20. However, 31-27 wouldn't shock me either. Maybe like a late touchdown, little backdoor cover by the Gators, something like that.
Yeah, and if Billy Napier is a good coach, and we both believe that he
Absolutely.
He has to see and realize that Pat Narduzzi gave him the blueprint for beating Tennessee because they were gashing the Tennessee defense with running the ball. And then for whatever reason, Narduzzi decided, hey, we're going to beat them by passing. Even though our stud quarterback, Keaton Slovis, is injured, we're going to win this game by passing. It didn't work out. So Tennessee could be on upset alert here.
I agree 100%.
Especially with the running backs that Florida has. So if you're Tennessee, you have to limit mistakes. You have to play smart football. Hendon Hooker doesn't make mistakes, so they've got that in their favor. But the rest of the team has to step up. If Cedric Tillman's too hurt to go, it's going to be on Brew McCoy and the rest of that receiving core to create opportunities for the offense. And, yeah, this will be a very fun game.
And don't forget, everyone's on Tennessee. The hype. Game day's in town. You've looked phenomenal on offense.
Barstool's in town. Everyone's in town.
Everyone. Josh Payton, those guys are in town. Like, everyone's in town. Everyone's hyping you up. Big-time marquee SEC on CBS will be one of the higher-rated games of the week. And Florida is coming off a should-have-been loss to South Florida. If you're Florida, this is a great time to go into Knoxville and get an upset win. Talk about the world is against you. If you're Billy Napier, that's really easy material. That speaks for itself. You don't have to do anything to this team. This team knows. Everyone thinks they stink. Everyone thinks Tennessee is really good. You have all the motivation you need to go in there and get an upset win. I think it's a fun game as well. Let's stay at 3:30. Texas versus Texas Tech. ESPN. Texas is a 6.5-point favorite. It's a fun game. This
is our game, baby.
Oh, I know.
See,
it sucks because I like both teams. I like both teams' potential ceilings are really good when everybody's healthy. Both teams maybe on a backup quarterback. Not sure of the status of my man Quinn Ewers, as I call him, because it's much easier than Ewers. But I watched that Texas Tech offense with the backup quarterback last week against NC State. Oh, good NC State defense. But that offense it's not quite ready for prime time yet. They're humming, and I think they'll be able to score points on Texas. Honestly, I do. Just because, again, styles make fights. But I think Texas is too good, and that's weird to say because we saw them against UTSA last week. But sleepy hangover game after the close loss against Alabama, should have won that game. You got a chance to go 1-0 against one of your rivals in Big 12 play here. Man, I think Texas wins, but I don't like 6.5. I like Texas by about 3.
Okay. Is Quinn Ewers healthy enough to play? I mean, that's the question. The last I saw is he's going to be dressed. He's going to be in pads, but they haven't made a decision on if he'll start. So, and Sark's been doing that anyway. He didn't release the depth chart for the first game. So who knows
Here's
what
a
we'll
question. Here's a question for you, Dustin.
Yeah.
Do you, because I don't, but maybe you do. Do you think this is a game that Texas can rest a guy if he's healthy and still win? Because I don't know if it is.
Yeah. So, yeah. And that's what I'm going to get into now. So,
Okay.
If Quinn Ewers is healthy enough to play, then I don't think this game's going to be particularly close.
That's fair.
But if it's Hudson Card, I still like Texas to win because Bijan Robinson.
Right.
He went off last week. I think he had like 183 yards or 158. I don't know. He had a lot of yards. But, I don't fully count out the Red Raiders here. This team has surprised me, and I'm all in. I love what they got going on there. But this Texas team, I think, is too talented. Hudson Card is not a bad quarterback.
No.
He's just not a very good quarterback. He's a serviceable quarterback. Right. So that's why I still think they can get it done. They've got one of the best receivers in the country to go along with it. So, I think here's what I said. If Card is the starter, then I like Texas by 7. If it's Quinn Ewers, I like Texas by 14 plus.
I think that's pretty fair.
And and it's not an indictment on Texas Tech. Like I said, this is a fun team. I like this Texas Tech team.
That's what I was about to say, and then we can move on. It wouldn't shock me if Texas Tech won this game. And the only reason I say that is because they went and competed really well against NC State last week. I mean, they gave up 28 points, but Dustin, some of that was short field. NC State had a defensive score, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the Texas offense is better when Ewers is in than NC State's, but very similar as far as stats-wise as NC State. Like, this is a kind of a weird matchup thing. And by the way, this is a Super Bowl kind of game for Texas Tech. And I know I said that with UTSA last week, but I think Texas Tech's a little better than UTSA. And so if they play up and Texas doesn't take them seriously, this is what I was talking about. Texas needs to get to the point where every opponent is nameless and faceless. Just go out and play your game, and you will win this game. If you buy too much into the, in-state, one of the last few times we're ever going to play them for a while because they're moving to the SEC, all that nonsense that we care about, but the players shouldn't. If they buy into all that, they could be on upset alert. Because I don't know how big of an upset this is to me. Yeah,
and you mentioned Texas Tech. They are a better team than UTSA, like you said, but I don't think they have a better quarterback. And,
not playing in this game, no.
Yeah, and Texas held Frank Harris in check last week. I mean, he threw for 222 yards, only rushed for 38. And I was right. It was 183 yards on the ground last week for Bijan Robinson, 3 touchdowns. And Xavier Worthy, though, that's the receiver I was talking about. I think he's going to have a monster game here. So you're right. Don't sleepwalk into it if you're Texas. Treat them like this is Bama. This is Bama you're playing. And if you do that, you'll roll.
Absolutely. Okay, last 3:30 game here. Notre Dame versus North Carolina, ABC. Notre Dame is a 1-point favorite. Buddy, why? What have we seen? Now, I understand North Carolina's defense is about as good as a middling Conference USA defense. That's just the truth, okay? However, on the other side of the ball, they're elite, and they have I don't care what anybody says, future first-round pick Drake May as their quarterback going into this game. They host Notre Dame. This is a Notre Dame offense that I know this North Carolina defense is bad. We're going to find out how bad this week against that Notre Dame offense. You gave North Carolina a week off going into this game. By the way, people act like North Carolina. Buddy, North Carolina's undefeated. They haven't lost. They've won every game they've played so far. And now, all 3 were in question at one point in the game, but they beat that App State team that just went on the road and beat Texas A&M. On the road at Boone. Did they not? And they beat a Georgia State team that we thought was a little bit better than it looks like they are. So, again, I actually really like North Carolina in this spot. If you're Notre Dame, you got to feel just sick about this game because this is a game going into the season you count as a win. Now, I'm scared to death. Now, I like Notre Dame's defense in situational stuff, But I just think that North Carolina offense may be too much. It looks like Josh Downs may be back. Question mark. We'll see. Give me the Tar Heels. At home, big-time environment, 3:30. I think, hey, we talked about it. When you put wins on the field, no matter how they look, wins are wins. I think the crowd will be there because Notre Dame's in town. I like the Tar Heels, man.
Yeah, and the last I saw, actually, right before we started recording, I think this line's up to 3 points now, Notre Dame. I don't know. I don't get
Do
it.
they know something we don't know? Like, is there something we don't?
So one team can score and score a lot, and the other team can't score. Luckily for that team, though, the team that can't score, they're going up against that team that gives up a boatload of points. So they're going to have their chances. Notre Dame is finally going to be able to find more of an offensive rhythm in this one, I do think. But Drake May, we sing his praises week in, week out. Rightfully so. He's going to sling it. Look for a big game from him. I saw the over-under around 55 points in this one. If it's that, I like the over. But if you get up to 58 or more, I don't necessarily like the over because Notre Dame's defense is pretty good. They held Ohio State under 400 yards total yards, and now Ohio State is first in the nation in total yards per game. So this is a good team on defense. Notre Dame has also won 24 straight regular season games against ACC opponents.
That's crazy. It's crazy stuff.
I didn't believe that when I read it, and I went back to check the season. I said, oh, okay, I guess they have.
I guess the last game they lost would have been the bring your own guts Clemson game. That's the only thing I can think of. Yeah.
That ends here, though. That ends here.
Ooh,
give me UNC in the upset.
That scares me. That scares me so much.
In Mac Brown, we trust.
I don't know about all that. And Drake May, I trust. I don't trust Mac Brown to be alive after this game.
Who brought Drake May on campus? Mac Brown. So in Mac Brown, we trust.
The kid is from there. Anyway, whatever. I know I probably just said a really insensitive comment that flew under the radar about Mac Brown. I hope he lives long and prospers. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, next game. One of my favorite games of the day. One of my favorite games every year because this game has been nuts since, even going back to when someone was there. Arkansas, Texas A&M, they play this game in Jerry's World. It's on ESPN, 7 o'clock. Texas A&M, a 2.5-point favorite. That's got to be just based off the fact that Arkansas messed around with its food last week against Missouri State. Arkansas pass defense isn't great. I want to point that out. Miami went on the road, lost Texas A&M last week. I don't know how good of a win that is, though. Dustin, I really don't know what Miami is yet because the only team with a pulse they've played, they lost to. A&M just lost to App State. Man, I just think this Arkansas offense is too good to go in here and lose this game. Have you seen anything from A&M's offense that lets you believe they're going to be able to take advantage of the Arkansas pass defense? Because I haven't. There just isn't anything they've put on film so far. Film, you know what I mean? On the field so far that makes me believe that they can score enough points to beat Arkansas. I think Kendall Briles and company will have a great game plan. All that negativity that surrounded the A&M program 2 weeks ago, Jimbo's being fired on the message boards. He was being fired yesterday when he lost out on a recruit to Florida State, his old program. The message boards were lighting him up there too. So this is a game, Jimbo, looking a little tough. I just like Sam Pittman. I like this team they put together, and I think KJ Jefferson makes a big difference in this game as well at quarterback. I like Woo Pig Suey, baby. Give me Arkansas outright. I don't understand the line, honestly.
Yes, sir. I like Sam Pittman also.
Yeah, baby.
Texas A&M's offense just flat out isn't good.
I hate watching it.
It's terrible.
I'll be at a Lenore Ryan, Carson Newman football game during that game, so I'm kind of glad I don't have to watch it, to be quite honest with you.
Carson, you going to be in East Tennessee? Or is the game at Lenore Ryan?
It's at Lenore Ryan.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, buddy, that's which I'll be in Maine, but that's an hour from my house.
I know.
Now, lucky for Texas A&M, Arkansas's pass defense is porous. They've allowed at least 325 yards. They've allowed at least 325 yards passing in every game so far. So it's a perfect recipe for Max Johnson to try to get things jump-started. Now, Texas A&M's defense is good, especially against the pass. So Arkansas is going to have to find some success through the air. KJ Jefferson's going to have to find some holes through the air just to get that run game some more breathing room. Because they are great at the run game. Can they do it? Now, one thing that Arkansas does do well on defense is rush to quarterback. They lead the nation in sacks. So if they can get back there and make Johnson uncomfortable, then I think they do it. I think they pull it off. Give me the Razorbacks in an upset as well. We have agreed way too much on this show.
I know it scares me. We're going to be wrong a lot. I just have a weird feeling. Take the under. Man, I like that Arkansas offense, but I would take the under. I just think A&M's going to make Arkansas play their game, which is got to be careful if you're Arkansas. You don't want to play their game. I would come out, go tempo, go fast, play your game and make A&M play to you. Because otherwise, this is a game you kind of look up and it's way closer than I think it may end up being. But I like Wu Pig Sooie to win the game. Last game, thank you for putting this on there because my narrative goes against your narrative. I have a feeling my narrative's about to die. But I think a respectful death, an honorable discharge, if you will. 9:30 on the Pac-12 Network. By the way, a shame, for shame, that this game is on the Pac-12 Network that none of you watching or listening get unless you're on the West Coast. I know we have a few, but it's not where our main audience is. Shameful that this game is on the Pac-12 Network. Yes. USC, Oregon State, two unbeaten teams in the Pac-12. Look, DeQuiz Rogers ain't walking through that door. This isn't one of those Thursday night at Oregon State where Mike Riley's teams beat Pete Carroll. This is a totally different animal. I love this Oregon State team. I think they're so fun. They're awesome on offense to watch. They're not like great on defense, but they play with a toughness that I just love. Love Jonathan Smith. Got the program going in the right direction. All that being said, this USC offense can score 35 points before you even get a chance to know what the hell happened to you. Now, on the other side, USC's defense is leaky. It's not awful, but it's leaky. It's better than it was last year, but that's not saying a whole lot, man. This USC defense could be bad, and it still be better than last year's USC defense. All the transfers that they brought in haven't quite clicked yet. Alex Grinch still has his work cut out for him on that side of the ball. I just think USC will be able to outscore Oregon State and the Beavers here. I do like Oregon State to not cover because I think it could be like a 10-point win by USC, maybe like a late touchdown. Oregon State has a late touchdown, makes it look closer than it actually is. I just don't trust that USC defense to stop a good offense, which I think Oregon State is for the most part. So I like USC to win pretty comfortably, but I think it could be close for a while. A little fun, entertaining matchup for sure. Shame that it's on this time, man.
Yeah. I put what a crappy draw for America for this game to be on the Pac-12 network. It's just absolutely shameful. Yeah. Most of America will not be able to watch this game.
Nope.
Because I don't know anyone that gets the Pac-12 network. But, what I encourage people to do is not break the law, but find your own avenues to watch this game. They're out there.
I would never do that.
No, of course not.
Not to watch movies, not to watch football. I buy the book, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. We got 2 3-0 teams here. The Beavers look like a team ready to take that next step, and the Trojans look ahead of schedule, look like they're wanting in the playoffs. So whether they'll get there or not remains to be seen, but they look good so far. This is 2 very high-powered offenses that are expected to put up crazy numbers again because the over-under in this game is set at 70.5 points. That's a lot of points. I don't know if I feel confident enough to take that over, but I don't hate the over. I mean, these are 2 high-powered offenses.
Could totally see a 45-30 win.
Yeah.
By USC, and that's like, okay, that makes sense to me. Yep, that makes sense.
So USC 6.5-point favorites. I do feel confident enough to take them to cover that. Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, Travis Dye, 3-headed monster on offense that look like they've been playing football together since Pop Warner.
Crazy.
Give me the Trojans with about a 9-point win.
You know what's weird? USC is basically going until they show me that they can recruit monsters on on the defensive side of the ball. Until they do that, they're basically replacing Oklahoma in the playoff picture. Like, it's kind of weird because Oklahoma's a team that gets there, they're unbeaten or they have one loss, they have a really good offense, elite offense. The defense is a little shaky, and then they get beat by Alabama. by 34 points. This is kind of looking very similar to me. That really good offense, but when it comes time, if they end up backdooring their way into the playoff as a one-loss Pac-12 champion, which is totally possible, by the way, just looking at the way the schedule lays out, they're kind of replacing the team that Lincoln Riley just came from, which I find interesting. West Coast Oklahoma. That's or maybe Oklahoma just keeps on rolling and being in that spot, because we'll never know. Okay, Dustin, any final thoughts before we get out of here? We went a little bit over the time. Of course we do. Everyone knows I like to talk. Dustin, any final thoughts?
No. Let's buckle up for another good game, good day of college football.
Can't wait. Great slate. Again, later on today, I will be at a Lenore-Ryan Carson-Newman game, so I'll miss the majority of the games today. I'll have my phones. I got my phones. I got 2 phones. I got a work phone and my home phone. I'm not rich or anything. They gave me the phone. But I'll be, touring Lenore-Ryan's campus. I'll be at a volleyball game during the day, but I got my phones. I'm locked in on what I can see, but I'm also going to enjoy time with my wife and friends. And
that's better than my situation. I'll be at a conference, getting some work on until about 3:30. So I'm going to miss the 12 o'clock games, but 3:30 on, I'm locked in.
Well, I'll be driving on the road during 12 o'clock games. I got my setup, right there in the center console. I'm looking over every time that I get a chance on the interstate there. So I'll at least get to know what's going on in those games, and I'm excited for it. Dustin, I just want to say, for both of us, we appreciate everyone following along, watching along, commenting, listening on the pod feed if you're listening to this later on before the noon games start. Make sure you check out the actual podcast that we do, which is during the week. This week we have 2 shows coming out. We have a bonus show on the coaching carousel, which we're going to kind of do maybe not one a month, but as the carousel kind of opens up, we're going to do some more stuff. But, we're a month into the season now, and we thought it was a good time to just kind of look at the coaching landscape. There's already some openings, but there's some potential openings as well. And then we'll have our normal review show / Thursday, Friday night preview show that'll be on your feed as well. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you check us out. Like, share, subscribe. For Dustin, I am Mike Settle. We will catch you next time